All right. Buenos dias.
Because you're on the far.
Oh, we need a lot more energy. Buenos dias.
Buenos dias.
All right, it's officially hump day, Wednesday, ad week. I hope everyone's having a good ad week. Let's welcome onto the stage our awesome panel. Let's bring Mark Howard, Chief Revenue Officer of Forbes, Saba Ashraf, CEO of Super Union, and Jason Wagenheim, Chief Revenue Officer of Bustle Media Group.
Shalom.
All right, so this is going to be the panel that does not waste your time because lots of folks in this industry love to hear themselves talk. And sometimes at Advertising Week, we just talk to ourselves.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
A little bit?
Will Smith is down the street, though, I heard. So I can't believe these guys are here.
Well, because Saba's much more interesting than Will Smith.
That is true.
You haven't seen her do the In Your Feelings dance.
No.
But the reality is we are at a really interesting moment in time when you have all the issues with walled gardens, with GDPR, with kind of all the challenges that marketers are actually really concerned about not truly having access to first-party data. And we kind of overlooked publishers in this whole mix. And I'm a big believer that publishers are the ones that power the internet. And so, I'd love to actually open up, with you, Saba. You've actually had, a really, kind of storied career working at some of the, most creative, innovative agencies. Specifically, you worked for a long time at Frog Design and IDEO, and now you're the CEO of Super Union. And you've worked so closely with marketers, and you are, a client yourself. How do you kind of view this ecosystem of where do publishers kind of fit into your mix? How do marketers view publishers today?
So one of the consistent things about all the places that I worked at before is it's human-centered design. So it's understanding what people need, what people want, what they would dream of and be delighted by. And so I'd say one of the consistent things to look at consists in the fact that it's really the publisher of the future is the greatest host the world has ever seen. And thinking about that. And so marrying it with understanding the environment of which you are playing that host, the context of it, as well as also thinking about it as a little bit as almost the perfect diet of like a food pyramid of what are all the pieces that would create this perfect scenario to deliver you what you need and when you need. So those are some ways in which I would think about it. It's my dream state.
That's awesome.
I love the food pyramid.
I have to riff on that just for a second. I love food. You know me. Where is the food? That's like a great analogy because what we talk about at Bustle is the importance of just executing at every stage, pre-sale, during a campaign, optimizing, and then post-sale, like the after. And we actually had the head of a large restaurant group come and talk to our account management team about like the best customer service in the world looks like, and we related to the restaurant experience, so to the food thing.
This was unplanned.
Totally. But like you talk about data and putting that in the mix. Imagine if you can go to a restaurant and everything was just perfect and laid out for you exactly like what you wanted. The food was cooked to the right temperature, the pacing of the meal was on point, the ambiance, the table you got, the service was just custom tailored for you, and the data and insights gave you that. You would go back to that restaurant over and over and over again. So the better that we can execute, the better that we can host or serve that meal, in the form of a campaign, the more likely we're going to be to get renewals along the way, which is what we're in the business of.
But this is again the power of the publisher. You hit on something which is like I think so powerful. You're talking about curating this experience. Mark, you just flew in from Boston, and I think you had a little event.
We did. We just finished our 30 under 30 summit. By show of hands, has anybody here heard of the Forbes 30 under 30? Wow.
That's like everyone
That's
for
everybody.
the live stream audience.
Is anybody here on that list? No, me neither.
All over 30, my friend.
Yeah. Anyway, we just got back from that summit. It's a 3-day event. It was 9,000 people. Some of you may have actually seen that Senator Flake was there on Monday speaking to the crowd, which was extremely powerful. But it's all about the community and building that community. And we've got a franchise that's critical for us, that was important as we are now a 101-year-old brand, to really identify with the next generation of business leaders and the people changing the world, which is what our brand stands for and inspires people to do. And that summit is really the tip of the pyramid for us in terms of being able to bring them all together. But it also is a launch pad for everything else that we're able to do. And it's just one of the communities that we serve. And it's certainly a model for how we think about all the other communities and opportunities that we have. And it's a great gateway for us to be able to work with brands to be able to get them access in really genuine and valuable way to be a part of it. And it extends in the live environment, it extends digitally, in some instances across the print product. So there's a tremendous amount of opportunity that we see in terms of not only being able to identify audiences and segments and being able to apply all this data so that we better understand their needs, but then also to really develop a sense of community that really changes the dynamics of what it means to be a publisher and what that relationship is for those people with us.
But you're actually providing deep experiences. I mean, literally, if you go onto LinkedIn, people badge themselves with the Forbes 30 under 30.
Almost everybody who's on the list, besides the company that they founded or that they work for, usually the very next thing in their LinkedIn is the year that they made the Forbes 30 under 30.
Amazing.
It is a tremendous currency that they operate with. We have hundreds of stories at this point about people who weren't able to have access to venture capitalists, or we're talking about very, very small Series A rounds that then once they got on the list, they were able to go raise significantly amount more money, the business partnerships that they've been able to form with each other. And then quite frankly, what's really most impressive is just the networking. When you go to that conference, I'm guilty of this. I'll be at this conference. I'll probably be on my phone in between sessions. I'll do emails, probably too much head down. At that conference, those young people, they are amazing.
Did you just say young people?
Well, I'm not.
Did you really just say young people?
I'm not under 30 anymore.
Those youngins.
Yeah, they are networking. That's what they're there to do. And they walk away. We actually had a really cool thing. If anybody's in the live business, we had this little click tab on your lanyard, on your name badge. And you would click it, and when both of them were blinking green, you had both of the contacts added to each other's app. And so everybody walked around and they were able to click. You didn't have to do the cards. You didn't have to do anything else. It literally was, 2 seconds click. And then the whole thing was just about how many people could you meet. And then obviously for them and everybody, it's the follow-up and the opportunity to really build that powerful network and the opportunity to do it in our environment. And so, it's a real source of pride for us. It's certainly transformed that franchise, has transformed our brand and our relevance. But it's also become a real model for us of how we think about other communities that we serve as well.
So you hit the nail on the head with the word that I'm most passionate about. I'm passionate about brands, right? And I almost feel like Advertising Week is a misnomer. Like no one cares about advertising, right? But people care deeply about brands. And Saba, I'd love for you to share a little bit about what is Super Union, and given that you've worked with so many brands, like what is your perspective on a brand today?
So Super Union, first of all, is a WPP brand consulting group. So at the beginning of this year, 5 different brand agencies within WPP merged. So if the name is new for you, it's because it's new. We have 750 people around the world. We're in 18 countries. We have 23 offices. And so when we think about brands and the type of work that we do, we're always looking at multiple audiences. So when you see the work that we do, we also understand that we're looking at the customers, we're looking at the employees. Employer brands are incredibly important. In addition to that, we're looking at the regulatory environments and the relationships they have there. They're also looking at the relationships that people have with the financial communities and access to capital specifically, and then corporate social responsibilities. So for us, looking at brands is a holistic view at that. And we start very early on with our clients to understand what does that look like. So in doing an audit, and then in addition to that, what are the things that are aligned and where are the inconsistencies? And then where might we focus to be able to understand how we could align to be able to create a better business environment for them with regards to impact, but also a really happy workforce as well.
And I just want to acknowledge Saba and the team Super Union. I sit on the executive committee of the Ad Council, and you just did the rebrand for the Ad Council. So thank you for that work. Could we give a round of applause for Super Union?
Thank you.
The Ad Council is truly, the source of light and all that's good that we do in our industry. But the reason why I want to bring up brand is because when you think about the publisher of the future, I always feel like publisher is the wrong word. You guys are brands. And in this world of fake news and like all this crap that's out there, it's almost like you now see the pendulum swinging back to brands that are viewed as premium, brands that are viewed as safe, and actually brands that truly understand their audience. And Bustle is almost a house of brands. So like, how are you kind of telling that story to marketers?
I mean, for us, it's like you're hitting on the word trust, really, which is what we talk to when we talk about our partners. There's so much concern about what who you trust and how you trust people you're working with, what people are doing with your data, and so forth. When partners are coming to us, it's because they trust us with their brand.
And what are your brands? Can you just share with the audience? Like what are the Bustle brands?
But we have Bustle.com, the mothership, Elite Daily. We just bought the Zoe Report in the spring. We have Romper.com, our mom's site, and we just acquired Flavor Pill, the experiential marketing agency. So part of our whole model is to be full service.
And did you also just buy something else?
We did. What did we buy?
Gawker?
Oh, we bought Gawker. Oh, yeah, that's right. A little thing called Gawker. Yeah, it's not on my mind yet. It's coming in the first half of 2019. I'll tell you all about it then. But it's going to be big, really big, tremendous. So look out for Gawker. But when we talk about trust, and Gawker's actually a great example when you think about it. Like it will be a very watched relaunch. There are a lot of people that have opinions about what that brand should be. We're going to do amazing things with it. We will bring it back. There has not been in the history of media, in decades anyway, something that has come back from the dead like this will, with such great fanfare around it. So we're looking forward to that. But when we talk about trust, and I go back to this idea of renewals, not to harp on that. Any dipshit can sell something once. It's selling it that second, third, fourth, and fifth time that drives our business. And partners come back to us because they have a trust with what we've done and shown with their brands historically. The more data and insights that we can show proof of concept, the more we can be accountable for how we, dealt with their campaign and how it performed, how well we executed. You'd be surprised about how much business we actually win because somebody else messed up. We might not have been the best, but we hadn't messed up yet, so we won the business. That's a really big deal for us. So our whole plan around execution and marketing the best customer service in the business is far more important than saying, to a beauty client, we have the most amount of women at Bustle that will buy your lipstick tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Like everybody can say that and spin those numbers. So the other thing that comes with trust, I think that's really important, is the courage to really be honest and transparent with a partner. We've had instances with multi-million-dollar campaigns where it just wasn't going to work, and we were pushed and pushed to say yes through every stage of the execution process, knowing that it just didn't feel right, what we were being asked to create. And because we're so afraid of losing a dollar, we don't say like, hey guys, let's take a breath and like reset. When we started doing that about a year ago and actually having the courage to push back with real insights and intent, and clients really appreciate that. I think that goes a long way to say like, this doesn't feel right.
But then it's not a transactional relationship. You actually care about the
Absolutely.
business, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's the thing, as much, I'm a born and raised New Yorker, but I live out in Silicon Valley now. And, I think the disconnect between what you see in New York and San Francisco is, this is still a people-based business. This is a relationship-based business. And, as much as you have all the technology and programmatic and all that jazz, people still matter. Relationships matter.
Absolutely.
I think even more so. I think even with all the programmatic, and certainly programmatic for us is a very large percentage of our overall revenue at this point. But there's still people involved in that, quite a few people, and they're still selling to people. But more importantly, our relationship with the brands, they are now no longer just looking for a transactional relationship with a publisher. They want a partnership. They want to view you as a marketing solutions provider, and they want programs. They don't want campaigns necessarily, and they want those programs to be very well thought through, led with the insights in the beginning, but able to be measured and tracked, and for you as the publisher to bring information that they wouldn't otherwise be able to have because of the different tools that we have and the access and to the people that are going to be participating in these programs. And they do want to know that you have the capabilities of a full service operations on the client services side and the execution to actually function as a marketing solutions partner. And so I think the most fascinating trend that we've observed for our business is that while programmatic is on, and that's great, and it's a consistent revenue stream, and it's got its fluctuations on seasonality, and we can prepare for that. But the types of programs, the size of the programs, they're typically much bigger. We're seeing the average program relationship in length as well as dollars increase pretty significantly, which I think is important. You need time to develop these programs. You need time for audiences or the people that are participating in these programs to be able to come along and watch it all unfold and feel a part of something. And so I think having those opportunities to work more closely with brands on these types of programs that do have this longer term outlook, but are going to have much higher expectations in terms of the quality of what you deliver, and then the expectations on you from a services standpoint to be able to execute.
I think that's where we really differentiate ourselves as publishers versus the Facebook and Googles, because they get all the money and everybody complains about that. And I'm like, you go think you're competing with Facebook and Google, that's fine. I'm gonna go take your money while you're doing that, because it's like the Little League baseball team playing the Yankees. It's just you're not gonna win. But where we differentiate, Mark and I in particular, is that the relationship, the trust factor, yes, but we are able to be on the same side of the table with our clients and really ideating about how to move a campaign forward. Facebook and Google don't do that. That's super transactional,
But I think you're hitting on something which is really, powerful. This is not about platforms, right? And I think what people truly conflate is, everyone in the industry knows 60, 70, 80% of all digital ad spend could go to to the walled gardens, but they are not 60, 70, 80% of the internet. And I think we have an issue in this industry where we have conflated content and distribution, right? And so if you see an article, from Forbes coming out of the Under 30 Summit, and I happen to read it in my Facebook newsfeed and I click on it, that's still going to go back to Forbes. That's Forbes content. You actually have that relationship with the audience. And this is kind of where the voice of the customer, the voice of the marketer comes in. I mean, Sabo, when you think about this, how are you truly understanding consumer behavior? When you think about this, do you view publishers as a source of insights? How are they part of your mix when you're thinking about understanding kind of human-centered design?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's definitely a blend. I mean, given obviously now from a publisher standpoint after GDPR, they are the ones who have the keys to more information than before, unless you're going direct to consumer, right? And in both of those cases, how do you have a blend such that you're looking at both of them together? And we look
But direct to consumer is also a publisher now.
Yeah,
right?
That
So
is true. Right. And so in both of those cases, how do you build those relationships and how do you take them in? And so the type of work that we do at the very beginning is used to inspire. So there's information and there's data that can be used to test later on. But for us, in thinking about the publishers, it's understanding what's the role that they're going to have to play and how do we build a brand with trust at the very beginning, because it's trust, it's engagement. People think about things like building something that's a minimum viable product based off of information. We think about them as more of a minimum awesome product. How do you deliver into that delight? How do you put that information?
I love that. Can we just hashtag it minimum awesome product?
It's not mine.
So I hear another product manager talk about minimum viable product. I'm just
Right.
like, guys, you guys, there's such a difference between a product-centered company or focus and a customer-centric focus.
Right. And to that, it's the recognition that understanding an MVP is critical. And you can use information and data to get to that point, and you can test that. But the techniques that you'll be using to understand how do you take it to the next level in terms of how you're actually going to create that product is one thing. And then how are you going to take those learnings to inform how you as an organization are going to redesign your organization? So there's the whole concept and the importance of creating a product-centric company, but then how do you become a product-centric organization that is all about the process by creating that and making sure everything from customer service to how your collaboration takes place and delivering next-generation products after that, making sure it's ready for that. And so it's also a blend much more so between things like the engineering organization and the marketing organization and finance. And so these are things that are on our mind, and we're seeing these changes every day right now.
But you hit on something which is really interesting is like, how do you actually kind of bring all those different orgs together? And I think there's so much coverage of kind of all the walled gardens or tech companies, and that's innovation. I'd like to say that publishers are incredibly innovative. It's almost like they have to, because you need to survive. And I want to call out kind of Mark. I'd love to hear a little bit. I mean, one. Back in, was it like 2010, 2011, before programmatic really started to take off, you were, I think, the VP of digital at the time before you became CRO, but you were one of the first to transform a publisher to go all in on a data, center. I think you were probably at the time the most data-driven publisher, and you really transformed the business to really kind of invest in programmatic, but you also innovated new tools, and you created, effectively native. And you started brand voice, and you got completely eviscerated in the marketplace.
Yeah.
Can you tell what that
was? People may not think that Forbes is necessarily tip of the spear or that progressive, and thank you, Stephen, for calling out a bunch of the things. We've been very early to the game on a number of initiatives that have later, in hindsight, become quite obvious. 2010, we first invited brands to publish content on our site. At that time, we got destroyed by the trades, that this was the end of publishing, this is blasphemous, Forbes is finished. I've got the headlines. I actually have the slide. I do it in a lot of presentations, and I show all the trades, what the date was, when they were just crushing us for doing this. This is 2010. If you actually look in Google Trends, native advertising doesn't even really pop up till about 2012. So we were very early on that front. 2012, when it exploded and everybody else was trying to figure out what they were going to do, those same trade pubs, and oftentimes the same reporter, were writing amazing stories about Forbes is so innovative, and they had the vision, and this is so fantastic. So, we did have to put ourselves out there, and we did have to endure quite a bit of public punishment. And quite frankly, in 2010 and 11, it's not like the business, blew up positive for us. It was a slow trickle. It was definitely that innovation adoption curve where you had the early adopters. We had a handful of them. SAP, who was actually first, has never stopped publishing since 2010 when they launched. Now we've obviously had hundreds of partners, and we have all different shapes and sizes and flavors of what branded content looks like. But then we followed that, and in 2011, in the fourth quarter, we had the very early conversations with Moat, and I believe, and Jonah will tell you, that Forbes was their first real client with their viewability product, and we launched that in January of 2012. That was early in the viewability world. We actually offered in 2012 a money-back guarantee program that included viewable impressions. Talk about being too early. We ran around. We thought this was it. We thought this was going to be 2012. We're going to sell everybody on this idea. Why would you not? We were going to do a brand study. You're going to have guaranteed brand lift. You're going to only pay for viewable impressions. It was just too early to the game. But those are the types of things that we were bringing to market, and we're always doing. And now, as we think about, certainly launching of new franchises like Under 30, but it's even more as we talk about the product and how you need your tech, engineer, sales, everybody's team coming together. We just launched a new CMS. We built it ourselves. We decided
What's the CMS?
Content management system, which is the core if you're a publisher of your existence. It's the tool that all of your writers use to create the content. We call it's AI infused, it's assisted intelligence. It's got all kinds of different tools in there to help the writer. It can do real-time recommendations on your headline, so the strength of the headline, so whether it feels like it's going to have strong virality in social or do well in search, and it'll give you recommendations on how to improve it. It recommends where in the article to embed either an image, a chart, a graph, a photo, a video, and it even has a library that it recommends which photo or video it thinks you should put in there. It tells you at what grade level you're writing at, how long the expected read would be. It gives a...
That's what'll scare the grade level.
We decided not to make that public facing yet. We debated that. I kind of want it, but right now it's only on the internal
You got to make
side.
that open source so we can apply it to every publisher or
Yeah.
everyone out there.
This article is 6 minutes, but it's written at a 5th grade level.
Yeah.
We think you will enjoy. That's where the AI gets a little scary on the personalization and personal delivery of content.
Can we,
Why is everything that I'm
we apply
reading
that
written
to
at a
tweets
5th
from
grade
public
level?
officials? Yeah. but this is the constant innovation, right? And as you can continue this march to innovation, I just think it's really important that we've reframed and just kind of look at, kind of the publisher of the future really as this kind of insights engine. And this is something where I remember in a previous life you worked at a different publisher when I was at Starcom MediaVest, and you would come and you'd be like, I know this customer, I have these insights.
Yeah.
And I think it was just kind of like a struggle. It was like, wait, you have insights? What are you talking about? And you're like, well, we have all this subscription data. We actually have first-party data. How do you help tell that insight story?
I think one of the first things I did at Bustle 2 years ago was hire Jessie Tarloff, who's on Fox News as a political strategist and commentator. She's actually the liberal millennial Democrat female on Fox News taking on Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity. It's
God bless
fascinating. She's on like 3 times a day. But we hired her when she looks and sounds totally different than your typical media person, which was good. We wanted like an outsider to come in and help us frame our business and building an an in-house insights team that, at a bare minimum, is just managing a good old-fashioned reader panel. We all have had them since the dawn of magazines, and the first lipstick review was written on a cave wall. We've all had reader panels of 5,000 readers that we tap into, invite them to parties, send them free stuff for advertisers. But what if we could take it a step further and do polling and focus groups and create, shopping sessions with them, figuring out and predicting like what type of products they're most interested in buying and how they're spending their money? That would be really valuable to a marketer. I want our marketing partners, when they come to us, to know that we have the best, most valuable real-time insights about what our audience is thinking, how they're shopping, what they're consuming when, and so forth. And we market that. I think data is really, really great, and it's like data, insights, insights, insights. But we often fall short on the marketing of those insights, how we do the reveal, how we take these programs to market, or insights to market, rather. And that's just made us smarter, as publishers. And we're the publishers that will survive. These are points of differentiation for us as we move forward. We're using Quantcast now, as you know. I think that's why I'm on this panel.
I thought it was because of your good looks.
Yeah.
Was it your good looks?
But Quantcast, simple reach. We took thousands of pieces of branded content that we have done. We ran it with our insights team and our audience development team, and we broke down literally thousands of pieces of branded content into 4 buckets of why consumers engaged with them. It was either to inform, to entertain, to connect, or to inspire. When you break it down, there was just 4 things, right? Kind of to your point, Saba. So now, as we're thinking and talking to marketers about the type of branded content we're producing for them, it's not just 6 editors on the branded team sitting around going like, oh yeah, let's just say this because it feels right. We match those insights from what the KPIs of what the advertiser is looking for, and match that against one of those 4 buckets. And then we create and produce content based on that end goal in mind. And oftentimes marketers don't even know what they want to do. So really helping them break down the brief and match their KPIs to what we end up producing.
I mean, one of the things I'm just constantly amazed, I've worked with like so many brands, I'm part of the AWNY, kind of a board, and you sit in these meetings and marketers really struggle with understanding their customer, right? They don't have enough insights. And I think, when you stand in the pain of your customer, you really realize that it's such a disadvantage because they've had this indirect model. I mean, if you're a CPG company, the retailer has all the data. Yeah. They don't have that. They don't have the relationship, and that's why the D2C brands are in such a unique position because they're going direct to the consumer. But Saba, I'd love for you to actually, share, like, how do you define an insight, right? When you if you can Google it, it's not an insight, right? Like, you have a very disciplined approach given, Frog and IDEO. I mean, these are just story design firms. How do you kind of view insights, and like, do you consider Forbes, like the publisher community, is that a source of insights for you?
Well, first of all, I think you've always given the best definition of insights, which is if you can Google it, it's not an insight. You've helped us all with that. With regards to thinking about different things that we use to kind of garner within our process itself, insights we look at as tethered information. So you may have information itself. Like, think about the financial community. They always say, whoever is making information based off of the things that they see in Bloomberg, et cetera, it's too late, right? By the time it's there, it's important, but it's too late. How do you take that information, see patterns, and being able to think about how you're going to bring them all together? So for us, with regards to how we look at that, it would be more about understanding the different audiences and where they are when and what their influences are. So
behavior.
Yeah, exactly, in context and empathy. And so on one end, it's about understanding the end consumer, like what do they need, but then actually decoupling that from when they are making a purchase decision, what is on their mind, where are they? But even more importantly, what people don't often talk about is that the end consumer isn't always the person who's actually making the decision around the product. So look at the items that one might have for a child and think about, what would a child appreciate, what would they need in certain instances? Well, they're actually not the ones who are making the purchase. It's typically one of their parents or somebody else in their family. And so what is that concept and that relationship between the person that you're marketing to, which often could be the parent, what do they need to hear and what do they need to feel? And then how do you take those insights and actually translate those into being consistent such that the experience of the delivery and the usage from a child's perspective is consistent? And so how do you build a brand that has consistency in its messaging and its positioning, but shows up in different ways, but yet is not in contradiction of the two? And so using insights to understand what is important to people when they're making certain decisions, and then what actually creates a lasting relationship such that in the future it's a brand that they covet and they want more of. And then how can you learn what they love to be able to think, what could we do better in the future with that product, or what other products could we create?
on that point, it's brilliant. We're really working hard, and what I'm really excited about for the future of publishing is understanding what people are actually feeling when they're consuming our content. And I'll give you the example of news. Is nobody wants news, from an advertising perspective. It's certainly now, it's so depressing. I mean, we had to go out and buy a puppy just to stop watching the news and make our family happy. We couldn't sell a branded content sponsorship to Smirnoff Ice for the Kavanaugh hearings, like the 10 justices that have blacked out in the history of time. Like, nobody touches that stuff. Just saying. But if we can know that there is good news out there and how people are feeling when they're consuming certain news content, and if certain news content makes them feel happy or inspired, that would help us predict how we would serve content based on those emotions. So it's like the Watson API, the NLU API. It's like the sentiment quotient. How can we start thinking about that as we are producing branded content? So it's not just a woman who's 32 years old, lives in Philadelphia, and is going to buy ice cream. We actually know how she's feeling, and we can serve ads dynamically based on that particular moment, based on what she's reading.
So, one of the things that you're starting to see, and Terry Kawaja from Luma Partners talks a lot about it, is truly the disintermediation of all the middlemen, right? And what we obviously see it, not necessarily with kind of either creative agencies or kind of like design agencies, brand agencies, but people want to go more direct to each other, right? And so I'm curious, Mark, like how do you view just kind of do you see publishers going directly to marketers, to kind of brand firms? Like what is that relationship? How is that kind of ecosystem evolving?
Yeah,
from your standpoint?
for sure. I mean, all publishers will tell you that they want to go direct to the clients and they want to have that direct relationship. For the most part, your longest partners, you absolutely do have very, very strong relationships there. There's very few programs that we execute, the real programs, where we don't have an agency partner that's working side by side with us. And oftentimes, usually the main partner in terms of when you're really in the trenches doing the work. So yeah, I mean, you do have to have those direct relationships on the brand side. You need champions there. You need someone with a vision. You need to understand what that person's goals and objectives are and how that vision fits in and how you can help support that. But you also, we work very, very closely with the agency partners on all these programs. They have to be right there at the table with you. And it's very rare that a brand would circumvent on anything really meaningful using their agency.
You're being polite, Mark.
That's right. We can't have everyone agree on the panel.
I'll say one thing. The RFP process is just a mess, and it's totally
Why?
It's what we're talking about. There's no direct understanding or direct relationship with the client. It's a complete middleman type of process. It's super transactional and very broad. We actually have 15. We just quantified this for first half. We had 15% less RFPs.
We like it when
in
you
the first
quantify.
half. Yeah, we like to quantify. Yeah. We had 15% less RFPs in the first half, but our business was up 72%. So our close rate is higher, our average deal size is higher. We're doing much more deals at a higher level, than we did in a year ago. And most of our growth is coming from outside the RFP process. It might start a conversation, and certainly we want to be on that hamster wheel. There's no question, and we get like 40 RFPs a week. I mean, we're 50 million uniques across our properties. We got RFP'd, and it's all women, on our sites. We got RFP'd for an HIV drug targeting African-American men that live in the Southeast, and we got that RFP. Like, why? That's flawed right there, that Bustle received that RFP. You should be laughing at that right now. Thank you. It's and we didn't submit for it. But I think it's the more direct relationships in business that we can do with CMOs who are really, really smart to get publishers in the room who understand their audiences better than anybody else, the more successful the outcome will be. We can transact.
Do you feel CMOs know their audience?
Do you know your audience?
I'd like to think I know my audience, but I could always do better.
I will say one thing. I read this stat.
It's hard out there for a CMO.
It's hard out there for a pimp. I read this stat a year ago, and I thought
I was trying to be diplomatic.
Yeah. I think the average tenure of a CMO in a Fortune 500 company is less than 2 years right now. I think I know. You probably know that. How long have you at Quantcast now?
I'm almost up. I'm like halfway through. No, but according to Spencer Stewart, the median tenure is actually now a little bit less than 2.25 years.
Yeah. So to that point, I think when we talk about what do marketers really want, which I think is a subhead for this, I think marketers just want to be successful, and they want partners who can execute for them, who are insight driven. All these buzzwords we're using. my job is to make a CMO look really, really good. And then they're going to keep coming back, and my job's going to be better. So I think that the more direct conversations that we can have with our partners, and not necessarily cut out the agency, I'm half joking, but cut out that transactional part of the equation and just buy us programmatically. It's fine. We have that now. Yeah. But if you really want to have a conversation about an award-winning campaign that's going to work, let's have a conversation and not transact over an RFP.
Look, I think the role of a CMO, and we have a CMO summit, Stephen, you come. It's 100 plus of top CMOs from around the world. We get them together in Cannes, we get them together in the fall. It's tremendous. Their role has evolved. I mean, it's by no means just marketing. It's growth. They have a seat at the table with the CFO and the CEO. It's strategy. It's culture. So they are really taking on the macro view, and to their ability to work with people like me, with Jason, with others, we have opportunity to create strong partnerships for them, but that all has to really fit into whatever they're being tasked with this bigger strategy role that they're typically taking on. I think the people who are north of that 2.25 are the people who really are driving strategy, are trusted advisors to the CFO, to the CEO. Sometimes there's a chief digital officer in the mix, sometimes there isn't. Now, as all companies, of course, are going through digital transformation, if you don't, you die. But oftentimes that rolls into the CMO as well. So it's a really dynamic role in the organization these days. And quite frankly, one of our biggest initiatives that we just launched a year ago is all about proving out, and we created this whole assessment tool and this whole toolkit that we're working with marketers on to show how marketing actually adds to enterprise value and connecting all of that activity, because you can do all these campaigns.
I need that, by the way.
What's that?
I need that for my CEO.
We'll talk.
All right, we'll talk.
Yeah, I like this.
No, but you're hitting on a really important point, which is, and Antonio Lucio, who was the CMO of HP, just became the CMO of Facebook. He talks about this all the time, where you really are a general manager now. And again, that's why no one is the chief advertising officer. You're the chief marketing officer, but it's truly evolving to be the chief growth officer, right? Yep. And as a GM, you really have to figure out how to manage growth, and growth is all tied to the customer. Yeah. And so, I'm curious, when someone hires Superunion, Saba, it's not like some junior mid-level person. You're dealing with the CEO. You're dealing with boards. You are dealing with, really transformative things that actually apply to the business at large. And again, you need to have this, kind of ecosystem of partners to help you either kind of effectively deliver kind of the brand value or whatever kind of the project is. But how do you actually view this from kind of that C-suite level?
So back to the idea that we'd like to make our CMOs look really good. We too are in that business. So we constantly are thinking about the people that are hiring us or we have the chance to work with. How do we make the value of their role very clear to the rest of the organization? Because in some organizations it's really clear, but in many it's actually just starting to become more clear how much of the actual marketing and the enterprise value itself is driven based off of the activities that are coming from CMO organizations. So for us at the very beginning, what we make sure is we understand the business of our clients, we understand the stakeholders, we understand the relationships between the groups. So you're almost a little bit of a psychiatrist at the very beginning as well. Understanding, having that real trusted conversation, and knowing that we're putting the kinds of people in front of these individuals that create that trust from the very beginning. So for us, that's an organizational thing. That's hiring the kinds of people who are high EQ, IQ, can be trusted, and are going to be there for a long time, who also have the kind of relationship with the internal teams, the design teams, to be able to produce the work. So we're thinking constantly about the people in the organization, what kinds of things do they need to see to build that trust and excitement and actually investment for the project. So even right now, we're looking at an opportunity which is in the professional services industry, huge company, and the marketing team, the team that's been behind it.
Is the CM1 kind of initiating this project? Like who's the sponsor of the project?
Definitely the CMO organization. And there was a big RFP, and we too, everybody has to do some RFPs along the way. And procurement is what you didn't mention, which is often the most challenging part of it. Right. But we all understand it. The goal of an RFP is to get the meeting, right? So you get the meeting. And so we've been chosen in this case. And the conversation that we had thinking we were about to kick it off was actually our finance team actually wants to better understand this. So how do you reorient the value of the work that you're delivering such that the finance team doesn't see it as a cost, but as an opportunity, as something that's accretive overall? So we have to learn how to build a translation of the work that we're doing, why it appeals to the different groups, and then what's the uniting rallying cry that across all of the different groups you can almost have like a manifesto to say, here's our North Star, here's what we all believe in. That work doesn't exist until you start working with a client itself. So for us, that's the very beginning of what we're doing across these organizations, but primarily with the CMO at heart. But it's not that we make everybody feel like it's for them. We design our program so it does hit on the marks of the KPIs that are important for all the different groups. But at the end of the day, typically our partner in crime is a CMO organization.
And is the, kind of the crescendo? Does it lead up to a board presentation? Like,
Absolutely.
Where does the board and the the CEO or CFO where do they factor into this?
So one of the things we've been doing a lot of lately has been we're moving away from decks. I think everybody says that, right? And one of the big reasons for it is because we realize
the world doesn't need another deck.
Oh,
Right.
and keep it less than like 5 pages.
And the thing also about a deck is that it can't reorient itself to multiple audiences at once. And so one of the things that we feel strongly about is when you're doing your work at the beginning, what are the different assets and artifacts that you could create to show what that brand might feel like when it came to life, such that you have this artifact that elicits responses from a group of people. They all know that they're also talking and seeing the same thing at a level of fidelity that's appropriate for where it's at. And so for us, we do that at the very beginning, and we constantly are doing that all the way through to the end. So back to the board. The board, as you know from a lot of the work that you've seen of ours over the years, a board is always a big piece of this important piece of work because you're either building a brand new brand or you're trying to understand how to reposition something for the future. You're also thinking about how it's going to hit multiple audiences, and in all cases, this is global. And in all cases, this is millennial, it's centennial, it's all of these different things. And typically on a board, appropriately so, there's diversity, and each of those people have different things on their mind. So an understanding how we can create something so it speaks to all the different people, but again is authentic to the overall message is what we focus on. So our work absolutely goes to board. Sometimes it's for approval to move forward, other times it's to inspire, and often it's to be able to get more engagements.
And honestly, this is why getting all the kind of key players in the same room or talking together is critical. And I really do feel like that's the future of publishers, right? Or, when you think about, we always talk about brand marketers. I really view publishers as brands. And so, in the, kind of remaining minutes of the panel, I'd love for each of you just to share, what are you most excited about? When you think about where the future of publishing is going, give us something that you really think is going to be transformative over, call it, whatever time horizon. But let's start with you, Mark. What are you most excited about for the future of publishing?
Well, I think you're exactly right. I think that publishers are brands. And you said in the beginning, people don't care about advertising, but they do care about brands. And I think we're, as a publisher, firmly at the center of that dynamic. And this idea that we have an obligation to mean something, to continue to mean something, and play a role to the different audiences that we serve. And then when you really think about what your business is, we really have 3 sets of clients. I've got all the people who write, and what we need to continue to do to service them and to make them better, more engaging writers, content producers, storytellers, and provide them everything that they need. We, of course, have our advertisers, and the advertisers and clients that we're creating these programs with, those need to continue to evolve, and we are very much changing from campaign to program to marketing solutions partner for them. And then, of course, there's the audience, and according to Quantcast, we had 100 million people last month. 100 million around the world. That's a massive footprint. That doesn't even factor in the social footprint. That's just coming to our websites, our website. So there's 100 million people and growing that we then have an obligation to continue to deliver for them. So you've got these 3 different groups and how we really think about what our brand means and how we continue to evolve our business to serve all 3 of those groups. That's the exciting part. And that's where the real opportunity is. And that's why even with all the money that's going to the walled gardens, and your point about that's not reflective of what the actual internet is and the need for publishers and our brands to survive and to continue to be meaningful, extremely meaningful to all the different customer bases that you serve. And I really view it as those 3.
Maybe there's a way that, coming out of this, we all as an industry, as a community, we stop using the word advertiser, right? Because when you think about those 3 buckets, I think the language creates reality. That word advertiser, I think, is the sticking point.
I think
and
you're right.
you're building marketing solutions. Maybe we just need to talk to marketers, right?
Absolutely.
Saba, what are you most excited about?
When I'm back to the balanced diet, I think about it all the time in terms of these different scenarios, and I'm fiercely loyal. So from a publishing standpoint, understanding these publishers who are going to play a key role in my life and others that I care about, including clients, to curate having the right information for them at the right time. So I think about it in terms of things like time of day, days of week, modes that one is in, your professional mode, your personal mode, that where you are in your career. And right now I have relationships on a personal standpoint with different publishers. Some of them feed my career trajectory, some of them feed my health trajectory, in all these different cases. And so the ability to use things like AI and different types of tools to better understand me and get smarter over time, but understand where and which publishers are going to deliver that to me is going to be something that I'm incredibly excited about, because right now it's not a bit of schizophrenia, but I don't always know where to look. And I go to a lot of places, and the peace of mind associated with that part of the search being over, and always having room, of course, for more, is something that I'm excited about.
That's awesome. But again, it goes back to understanding true human behavior. And again, if we get out of the data swamp, it's about understanding the patterns in the data. And that, I think, is actually where machine learning could add a lot of value.
Definitely.
Jason, what are you most excited about?
Everything they are. I'm excited about what I don't know, to be honest. I love iterating.
My friend, you should be really excited.
Yeah. I like these cowboy boots. I'm excited about them.
I feel like I should be sitting
I'm excited
in between
about.
the two of you.
I'm excited about continuing to grow and iterate, and I think our business is changing really quickly. In so many ways, it's still Wild West and it's a very nascent business on the digital side. And what I think our survival will depend on is our ability to continue to grow and iterate on our businesses. For me, it's mostly about becoming more full service for our partners and getting on the side of the table with Sabah and other CMOs to figure out how we can really fully take on their business and their campaigns. That's going to make us successful. I'm also excited, on some level about the consolidation that's happening. It's hard out there, like we said, for smaller publishers in particular. Our model is to build a modern version of Condé Nast or Hearst, where we have maybe 10 or 12 great brands that can live and play together or be independent, great brands on their own, and get onto our tech stack and our infrastructure and our shared services to really provide great content at scale for our partners.
And again, it goes back to language creates reality. Maybe we just need to retire the word publisher.
Yeah.
Because you're doing so much more. You're not just publishing, right?
Sure.
So if you're going to be this full service provider, but do you feel like the pendulum is truly swinging back to premium? That you really feel this renaissance for brands?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great time to be a publisher right now, especially when you've got money behind you and you've got some scale. It's not everything. Size does not matter exclusively, but it definitely helps in today's day and age when you're up against the Facebook and Googles of the world. I also think I'm also really excited about getting on the other side of the table with Facebook and Instagram and Google and Snapchat and the guys that are getting a lot of the money, figuring out how we can work more with Amazon. One of the big challenges I've tasked our team with next year, and we're going to use Quantcast for these insights, is how do we take traditional upper funnel branded content and move somebody down the funnel on our platforms instead of having them go somewhere else? Our marketers need to see more transaction happening on our platforms rather than off. So what are the things we can be doing with social commerce and other places and working with an Amazon to make sure that we're connecting the dots between the upper and lower funnel?
Well, I think that's the beauty of technology, right? There is no more funnel. It's all one customer experience, and you want to figure out how to do awareness, you want to do DR performance targeting. It's all fused by technology. So again, I'm just very excited that you are all leading the industry. I have incredible confidence in the future of brands, not just publishers. Thank you all for being on this panel. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.